If you've watched the last few videos on this channel, then you'll know we've been thrown a little bit of a financial curveball over the course of the last year or so. But don't panic, this video is not about money. This is more about stuff, priorities, purpose. I'm on that whole self-improvement kick again. It's about that. Because for a few months now, I have been going through the process of selling off a lot of my collections. I am a collector at heart. I am a nerd. And if you've followed me for a long time, you'll know that I have many, many collections of many, many things. And we currently have 2 storage units full of stuff. To be fair, one of them is full of our Lego City, which is specifically there for content and has a purpose. That one can stay, but I would like to get rid of the other one, not just because it costs me £150 a month, not just because selling all of the stuff in there will bring in some much needed cash when we're a little bit lighter than we have been in recent years, but also because I think it's about time I just stopped infinitely accumulating things, and then when I'm done with them, just moving them out of sight and forgetting about them. It's not great, is it? To be that way. And I have definitely fallen into that trap over the last 5, 6, 7 years. I am the prototype for the kid that grew up without having loads of money, scraped his way through his 20s without really being able to afford to pay his bills, and then all of a sudden stumbled across some cash in his 30s and didn't really know how to manage it properly, despite being a trained financial advisor. And I just bought things, all of the things, and I am now being crushed under the weight of the things. And what I'm noticing is the more I sell, the lighter the load becomes. Not just financially, but it's actually quite nice to just own less stuff. And I realise I still own a lot of stuff, but I'm working on it. And that's what this video is about. So going back to the start of the story, for those of you who maybe haven't been around for the whole thing, the reason I started selling stuff was twofold. One, Football Manager, the game that I used to create, or at least previously used to create most of my content and make most of my money, got cancelled last year, and that led to a massive hit to our finances. I've made a whole video talking about that. We don't need to go into it again here, but I found myself needing a little bit of cash. But the actual thing that spurred on this current selling spree that we're still part of nearly a year later was having to move house, because we were in a 4-bed house. Our kids had all grown up and moved out. We got notice from our landlord that they were selling and we would need to move. So all of a sudden we had an unexpected house move that we hadn't budgeted for at a time when money was lower than we were expecting it to be anyway. And the housing market had gone. So we actually ended up having to move to a smaller house, but our rent went up. So we had a need for some money and a need to occupy less space. And the two of those things combined perfectly into, right, well, it's time to sell, as a first port of call, all the stuff that I was keeping in the cupboard under the stairs, which was a large part of my sealed Pokemon collection. Ended up selling that for about £8,000. That's how much of that I'd accumulated. But that comfortably paid for the house move, new furniture to fit into the new house, and various incidentals that come along with moving house unexpectedly. The removal van, having to pay to have the old house decorated when we moved out. Some of the modifications we had to pay for in this house when we moved in. TV brackets being put up on walls. I'm sure you've moved house before. You know it's an expensive time, and definitely it was handy to be able to liquidate some stuff that I wasn't getting any pleasure out of anymore. I'd got my joy from those things when I bought them. I'd liked owning them, and then I'd forgotten they existed. So it was effectively free money, because I still now, I mean, I sold the first of that back in July last year. So nearly a year later, I still don't miss it. And I'm pretty happy that it's gone. And it was going through that process of, there's a thing that I really liked owning. I enjoyed buying it. I enjoyed having it, but then I had to sell it and I didn't miss it. And that kind of set something off in my brain. And ever since then, I've been trying to figure out what else I can do that with. And if you keep an eye on my eBay, you'll have seen some of the stuff that I've been selling, but some of the things that I've already sold off Like I say, most of my sealed Pokemon collection, I've started selling off some of the individual cards and some of the collections in binders as well from the Pokemon stuff. I've sold a lot of my video game collection. I had quite a large Nintendo Switch collection. A lot of that is gone or going. I've started selling off the comic book collection because most of that just collects dust on my shelves. I read almost exclusively digitally on my iPad. So the physical comic book collection has been slowly whittling down. I've sold some of the Lego that I bought, never built, and don't need to own anymore. Still to sell, I have my wrestling figure collection, my Funko Pop collection. I've only just started selling off my 100+ football shirts that I've accumulated over my time doing Football Manager content. There, gradually hitting eBay as well. And just by listing it off like that, you realize just how much of an absurd situation I'd got myself into. There's a line you cross between being a collector and a hoarder, and I think I crossed it a long time ago. And Anna quite rightly said, when I started to get into Lego in a big way about 18 months ago, I had to choose. If I was going to start spending a lot of money on Lego, I couldn't buy any more Pokemon. I couldn't buy board games. I couldn't buy wrestling figures, and I needed to pick a thing and focus on that thing. And then if I'm done with that thing, get rid of it all before moving on to the next thing. No more jumping from thing to thing to thing and just letting it all accumulate, sticking it in the garage. A lot of you will have seen the garage from our old house, sticking it in the cupboard under the stairs, sticking it in the storage unit. That ends now. I am going to try and really whittle down every possession, and pretty much every possession I own, I'm going through the process of, am I getting pleasure or utility out of owning this thing? If it's not bringing me joy and if I'm not using it, why do I still own it? Because I don't need to have just things for the sake of having just things anymore. So on that note, I'm not selling my Fugglers because they still give me pleasure. I love looking at my beautiful Fugglers every day, and because of that, they're not going anywhere. But also because of that, with the impending launch of the Nintendo Switch 2, I probably don't need to keep hold of my 2 Nintendo Switches that I still own, my original launch one and my OLED one. So there, one of them's already up for sale. The other one will go up for sale as soon as my Switch 2 arrives and I've moved everything across. My physical game collection is going. All the comic books behind me will eventually be going. And like I say, I still have the entire storage unit to go through. It's just a case of finding the time to list it all now, and also working out the stuff that actually has value for sale. And some of the stuff probably just needs to go to the tip. The other day, I found a big box full of all my FIFA and Football Manager games, going all the way back to the original FIFA International Soccer on the Mega Drive, all the way through to like the last physical ones I owned were probably like FIFA 18, maybe Football Manager 18. And I was looking at them and none of them go for more than like £2 on eBay. It was probably time to just drive them to the tip and get them gone. And I haven't quite gone that far yet with things that I've deliberately bought and collected, but now have no value. But I think there will come a part of this process where, okay, just storing these things is costing me £150 a month. I just need to get them gone. I'm not quite ready for that yet, but I am, like I say, full steam ahead on selling the stuff that I can liquidate into some cash that we can then use for Lego. But also, you know, we would like to go away again at some point this year. We've had a couple of 2 or 3 day trips, but we'd quite like to go away on a slightly longer trip, maybe just before Football Manager 26 comes out. I'm thinking maybe September time, it would be quite nice to have a week away somewhere. We can't do that at the moment, but if I can generate 2 or 3 grand from somewhere, maybe we could have a week in Benidorm and have a lovely time. So yeah, it's lots of new ground that I'm entering with all of this. But this isn't just a sales pitch to encourage you all to go and check out my eBay. I haven't even mentioned my eBay account. It's linked down below if you really want to go and buy some of my old stuff. And as lots of you ask when you do buy this off of eBay, yes, I'm happy to sign it. For some of it, I'm very confused why you would want it signing. But if you do want a football shirt from a Football Manager series that you enjoyed, I'm happy to sign it and just put a note on eBay when they come up for sale. So it is a little bit of an advert. Got to abuse my position a little bit, but I also wanted to talk about some of the things I've learned from this process. And the big takeaway number 1, main takeaway, is that stuff, just as stuff, doesn't bring me joy. I enjoy when I'm really into a thing. Like I'm loving Lego because I'm really, really into Lego. So at the moment, bringing in new Lego, building the Lego, integrating the Lego into my Lego city or into my displays, that is actively bringing me joy. Therefore, that's not a problem. That's not something I need to discontinue. But there are other things like, for example, I've got this binder that is currently on sale on eBay. This is about £600 off of Pokemon cards. It's a full collection of the Celebration set. I haven't opened this since the day I finished it. It's just been in this binder, in a box, in the aforementioned cupboard under the stairs. And since then, it lived in this cupboard behind me here. And I've not even looked at it. And I actually forgot I had it. And I looked at it on eBay and realised it was worth £600 or £700 and was like, I'd rather have the £600 or £700. That's not bringing me any pleasure. I forgot I owned it. I enjoyed collecting it, but I don't need to own it anymore, so I can move it on. And I think I'm slowly learning that as much as I enjoy the hunt, maybe I need to get into the habit of trading a little bit more and still take my bit of the pleasure, which is the hunt, but then maybe get into the habit of selling the stuff on the moment I recognize it's no longer bringing me pleasure anymore. And I might just need to audit my stuff every couple of months and literally go through the process I'm going through now every time things start to accumulate and be brutal with it and not get back to the point ever again. Once I get rid of this second storage unit, never get back to the point where I need one again. That's the goal. I also think eliminating some of the clutter is slowly but surely helping my brain as well. Obviously at the moment, it's almost having the reverse effect because I'm constantly surrounded by clutter. The stuff I'm currently selling on eBay is forever piled up on this table next to me, so it's easy to package up and send out when it's ready to go. But as I slowly see the piles in the storage unit lower, there's boxes that were out on the landing. As they slowly start to empty, I do start to feel better as the clutter in the Lego room slowly dissipates. It is helping me a little bit with clarity and organization. And I think it's tickling the right part of my autistic brain to have less stuff. Yes, there's the bit that wants all of my things all of the time forever, but I think it's quite nice to get to the point where I have fewer things that I really, really love and can find easier because they're not hidden under a load of stuff I don't want anymore. And of course, the unspoken additional benefit, it's making space, both financially and physically, to bring in new stuff. I can bring in more Lego because I'll be able to afford more Lego. I can bring in a Switch 2. I wouldn't have been able to get a Switch 2 if it hadn't been for the fact that I'd sold enough stuff to be able to cover the Switch 2. That's not a discretionary expense we can just pull out of our income at the moment. But by being able to sell a load of old comic books and Pokemon cards, I'm able to get something that I know I'll enjoy because I loved my Switch, I love my Steam Deck, I love handheld gaming. So I'm really looking forward to getting that. So by freeing myself up financially and physically, I'm creating that space to bring in stuff that will bring me joy, which is going to overall improve my general day-to-day happiness. That's the theory. And the goal is to eventually get to the point where I just have a few things that are awesome. I would love for the next time we move house to not need 40 boxes and a storage unit to put all of our stuff in. Whether I'll ever achieve that, I don't know, because like I say, natural collector. But I mean, I've always got this kind of long-term dream that I'd like to not do full-on van life, but I keep telling Anna, I want to get a van. I want us to go and explore England, Europe, America in a van and maybe go away for extended periods of time, go and have a 4-week, 6-week road trip across Europe, living out of what we can fit into a van and a backpack. And to do that, I need to get used to relying on less stuff on a day-to-day basis at home. I need to be able to live lighter, travel lighter, have less stuff that I value more. And that's the goal. And I'm slowly figuring it out. Don't panic. I'm not becoming a minimalist. I know I could never do it. I look at some of the videos from some of the minimalist guys, Matt Diavella, one of my favorite content creators here on YouTube. I could never be the way he is because I love my stuff too much. I don't want to have no stuff. I just want to have less stuff that I don't need. So I guess it's more about becoming more intentional with my purchases, with my collections, than becoming minimalist. And I certainly don't want to get back to just accumulating stuff willy-nilly, throwing it in a storage unit and not caring because we didn't need to care because we had the space and we had the money. That's not a great place to be financially, mentally, and it is silly. It's just silly. And that brings you up to speed with where I am with getting rid of my stuff. Would love to have you share in the comments section maybe some of the things that you've been able to let go of recently. And specifically, how did it feel by doing it? Or are you like Kev from a year ago, but still very much in that hoarding stage? And if you are, enjoy it. It is a lot of fun. Just try not to take on the second storage unit, because that's when you kind of are forced into realizing it is a bit of a problem. But hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for me sat in a chair chatting about my life a couple of times a week. And thank you very much for watching.